Joe Flacco stunk it up versus the Buffalo Bills, and we are here to talk about it, Colts Nation, on episode 4 of the Colts Unplugged pod. I am one of your co-hosts, Ati Oberoi. Joined by me is my other co-host, Pro Fan Logan. And Logan, that stunk. That hurt. That was painful. Walk me through it. How did you feel? What did you see?
Yeah, well, first off, for anyone that's not watching the video right now, I'm wearing a Pacers hat because that's the only team in Indiana worth supporting right now. Not named the Hoosiers, of course, and the only team that seems to be able to win other than the Hoosiers as well. I don't get it.
God, I miss
I guess
Caitlin
we'll
Clark.
start there. Exactly. I guess I'll start there. It's starting to slip away. Addy, this season. We knew once this whole debacle went down that it was going to go one of two ways. Joe Flacco was going to come in and quote unquote save the season, right? Take the Colts on a playoff journey like he did for the Cleveland Browns last year, or once again we were going to be on the outside looking in as Colts fans, as it has been since Phillip Rivers in 2020, sitting at home watching the playoffs. So it's starting to look like it's moving towards us sitting at home again, watching while these other teams get to go have fun and play. And that's what I don't like, because as a fan, you just want your team to be in it towards the end, to be exciting towards the end. And I fear for the worst that with 7 games left to go, 8 games left to go, there's a really good chance we might be watching some meaningless football here in a few weeks.
Hey, nice part though, our schedule gets better in 2 weeks, after 2 weeks.
100%. Yeah, 100%. But yeah, when it comes to Flacco, you put it best. It was a putrid performance. He stunk it up all over the field. And he gave Anthony Richardson 0 things to learn from, just like he did in the game against the Vikings.
Yeah, last week.
That is what is so frustrating, is this whole process, right? Was supposed to be, let's bench AR so he can learn, and he's not quite ready yet. He needs to mature. First play from scrimmage, Joe Flacco winds up, pick.
To the
Not
defense.
Pick 6. Pick
Yep.
6. Quite literally a slap in the face to Anthony Richardson supporters everywhere. Quite literally a slap in the face, like you said on that video on our podcast page and on TikTok. Just a slap in the face to Colts Nation with that interception, and it didn't get better from there. It did not get better from there, unfortunately.
I will say, you can't write a better story for all the Colts fans that were there, that had their hashtag free error signs. Whoever was able to get their posters in, I heard Jim Irsay was not allowing it, but whoever was able to let it in, I'm sure they were happy. They were happy about that. First play of the game, pick 6 to the defense. And it just didn't get better. It really didn't get better outside of the last drive when we were down 17 points, and it was just, whatever, shitty drive. Like, it's whatever. Bills didn't care at that point. And all the box scores watchers are going to be like, oh my God, Joe Flacco had a over 70 completion percentage and 2 touchdowns and whatever. But quarters 1 through quarter 3, he had 4 turnovers, right? He had what, 3 picks and 1 fumble. Logan, let me ask you, how many of those balls that were not picked did you see that could have been picked off?
I counted at least 2, potentially 3. I know 2 for sure that should have also been picked off, but potentially 3. I might have missed one there, but yeah, it's just absolutely embarrassing, because a lot of people were talking about on Twitter and Colts Nation the fact that because of the garbage time numbers, right? Because of the garbage time stats, you got Flacco. He finished 26 of 35 passing and had like a little bit over a 67% completion percentage. But the problem is that does not tell the story, because the majority of those yards, of those passes that Flacco threw, it was at a point in the game where the Colts had already lost. I mean, the Buffalo
Yep.
Bills were playing prevent defense for the last like quarter and a half, dang near. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. And at no point in the fourth quarter did it feel like the Colts were threatening to come back and tie this game up or take a lead. At no point, I can confidently say, did I feel that way. And so, yeah, if you were looking at just the box score for Joe Flacco and you did not watch the game, please do all of Colts Nation a favor. Go back and watch the game. Go back and watch the lack of command of the offense from Joe Flacco. Go back and watch the terrible interceptions that he threw. Go back and watch the lack of pocket presence and the lack of his ability to get outside the pocket, the lack of his ability to extend a play. Please do Colts Nation a favor and watch that, because
Yeah.
do not look at the box score and be like, oh, well, you threw 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Not too bad, right? Just had an off game. No. One of those touchdowns was an absolute garbage time touchdown to Alec Pierce that did not matter at
Happy
all.
for Pierce though, but it didn't matter.
And exactly, yeah. And then the other touchdown was a literal. I mean, you or I could have made that pass, right, to
And Goodson
Goodson. It
still
was
almost
literally just
dropped
a
it.
flip up in the air. Yeah, and Goodson still almost grabbed it. But yeah, I'm talking nothing special at all out of Flacco yesterday.
Yeah, that
Zero.
was a painful watch. That was saddening to watch. And to be honest, what pisses me off the most is that there is one reason, there is one person why we lost that game, and that's Joe Flacco. I really think the wide receivers were playing well outside a couple of drops. Josh Downs had to drop and whatnot, but the defense balled out. They balled out. They held Josh Allen to, I think you take away that picks, you take away the pick six, you take away some of the short fields. Like realistically, they held Josh Allen in that offense to like 17 points, which should win most teams' games, basically, if the offense just performed. But in the last 2 game stretch, we're averaging 17 points per game with Joe Flacco, and it's just not possible. And that was just a putrid performance. And I think I tweeted in like the middle of the game, I was like, it's okay, Colts fans. It's important to know that we have a 40-year-old and we've got to develop him, because that's the most important thing for our organization today. And it felt like the 40-year-old needed some development, right? Like just watching him, I was just like, granted, I was a bystander. I was watching it on my TV, but some of the things I was seeing, I was just like, why are you throwing it there? Like, why are you throwing it into double and triple coverage when you have the flat wide open? Why are you just missing Alec Pierce when he had like 10 yards of separation? There's 10 yards before him, 10 yards past him were 2 defenders. There's a giant pocket in the middle and you just miss him. Like, frustrating. And then the screen, you think a 40-year-old would know, like, hey, a screen pass being covered, let me just throw it into the dirt instead of giving the possession away. It's whatever, second down, third down, we'll recover from it. Instead, you just throw it right into the hands of a D tackle. It's mindless shit like that you expect out of a 22-year-old quarterback that you should be developing.
Right.
But instead, you're talking about those processes through a 40-year-old that is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, and some may have a point to say he might be in the Hall of Fame. That was the most mind-blowing aspect to me, is the lack of awareness, the lack of, hey, like, I've been in this league for this long. Why am I still fucking up like a rookie? Not to mention you look like a tree trunk and a statue in the pocket, but that's a different story.
That's what I was going to say is, honestly, again, going back to the Flacco performance, to build off that, for me, the most disappointing thing, obviously outside of the interceptions, right? Like, that's cut and dry. That's disappointing for everybody. But the most disappointing play I remember for me was on 4th down when
Oh my God,
Joe
yes.
Flacco needed to extend the play, right? It was an absolute must have it. It's going to change the course of the game. And if we don't get it, the Colts were basically going to lose, right, at that point. And this man, like, scrolls to the left of the pocket and just kind of falls down, man. Like doesn't even keep his eyes down the field, just like collapses. And I was just like, I could not help but think Anthony Richardson would have picked up that first down with his legs so easy. It would have been not even a question. Not
And
even a
we've seen
question.
him do it. Like, this guy's fight. Like,
Hmm.
you'll see him at like 4th and goal against the Jags twice at like the 2-yard line. He is fighting to get yards and get into the end
Yeah.
zone because he cares. He cares. But Joe Flacco, and sorry to cut you off, Joe Flacco just, hey, let me just be a tree stump and take a sack because that's a veteran
Yeah.
move. That's what I should do because there's
Yeah.
always 5th down. And it's just mind-boggling.
It's crazy. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And yeah, it was just dumb. It was just dumb decision. Like you said, that you don't see from a veteran quarterback like that. And crazy enough, man, one thing I wanted to talk about, because you did mention the defense, and I do want to give them their props. Um, two things I wanted to mention there and get your take on too. Number one, if you would have told me that Josh Allen, who only had 2 interceptions on the season coming into yesterday's game against the Colts, if you were to tell me before the game that the Colts defense was going to have 2 turnovers, two picks on Josh Allen, and that we were still going to lose the game, I would have been mind blown. Like it's crazy. Like to not take advantage of those big time interceptions on a guy who's playing his best football that he's ever played in his career, right? Potential
Yep.
MVP. Come on. I mean, come on. And both times the Colts intercepted it. EJ Speed, Kenny Moore, both times they set the offense up in prime position to go get points, and the
Yep.
Colts only came away with a field goal. Field
Crazy, man.
goal, 3 points. And so, like, again, your defense is doing absolutely everything they can to help you out. But when the offense is playing that poorly, there's just no amount of defense that is going to help you. There's
Yeah.
no amount of defense that's going to help you win games when your offense is playing that poorly. And then the second
Yeah.
point that I wanted to bring up again on the defense, I wanted to get your take on it. There's definitely we already knew this, right? But there's trouble brewing in the locker room. There really is, because Kenny Moore, after the game, was quoted saying, "I don't think guys are trying their hardest," and it was in response to a reporter asking him what he thought about Jonathan Taylor's response about like what's the vibe been like in practice and things like that. And Jonathan Taylor said, "Yeah, practice has been good, but it hasn't been translating to the field." And then Kenny Moore comes out and says, "No, I'm a leader on the team, and I'll tell you what, not everyone's trying as hard as they can." And that's obviously not directed at Jonathan Taylor. He was trying his ass off out there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a problem, man. Like, and that tells me that there is some serious problems going on in the locker room, which is crazy
Yep.
because the Colts are normally pretty solid, pretty tight bunch when it comes to in the locker room in previous years. So I kind of wanted to get your take on that. What do you read from that, from Kenny
Yeah.
Moore, one of the leaders of the team? He's out there on in the front of the stadium, right? His posters up on the front of the stadium. What is your take on that?
Yeah, and first and foremost, Kenny knows JT's been balling, right? He had like 106 yards rushing in the first half, and then 5 carries in the second half. Like, come on, what are we dialing up
Steichen.
for Jay? Yeah, and like I get it, Steichen, man, I still think you were a phenomenal play caller. I think you still are a top 10 play caller in the
Yeah.
league. But like, what the hell are we doing? Like, what are we doing? I was looking at the A22 today, actually this morning, and I was like, wow, some of the shit that he was drawing up. I was looking at Colts film room too, like some of his tweets and Zach Hicks tweets. By the way, you guys are awesome. Steichen's still dialing. AD was playing out of his mind. Josh Downs was playing really well. JT was playing well, but I think I don't think Kenny was directed towards any of those players. But I
Mm-mm.
question, and I always think of, like when Kenny said those words, I was just like, 2022. This reminds me of 2022 with
It's
Frank
crazy.
Reich. He lost control of the locker room. Obviously, he got fired midseason, and this whole debacle of Jeff Saturday happened and whatnot. But I don't think that's going to happen. But it does give me a sense of, and it gives me a feel of, hey, this is very eerie and kind of reminds me of everything that Colts fans and the Colts organization and the Colts players went through in 2022, where it just felt like the locker room was just messed up as a whole. People were showing up late. I don't know if that's what Kenny Moore was
Yeah.
referring to. People showing up late to practice, not giving it their all. And I was sitting here questioning last night and this morning, like who is this directed to? Because I can't. I don't think it's directed towards Anthony Richardson. Maybe not. I don't think so. I think if anything, it's Joe Flacco. And once again, I'm not 100% certain on this, but like you see Joe Flacco and post every single drive, he's just sitting there looking mindlessly like in the audience and whatnot. I'm just like, bro, go talk to your offensive players. Go talk to your defensive players. Like, hype that shit up. Instead, you're just sitting there like mindlessly, whatever. Like, hey, I'm 40 years old. I'm gonna retire in a year. Like, it doesn't matter at this point. So I genuinely don't know, but it really reminds me much of 2022, and that's a scary feeling to have because I feel worse right now because I feel like there's no sense of direction for this team. At least we knew back then, hey, we're going to draft a young quarterback. We're probably tanking, even though the players don't want to call it that.
Mm-hmm.
But we're probably tanking. We're not a good enough team. We're going to get a young guy and kind of rebuild. Versus now, I'm just like, what are we doing? Like, where's the direction for this team?
To your point about Flacco, that's a great observation because I also have heard a lot of Colts fans and a lot of Colts media members, like for example Kevin Bowen was talking about it, how uh, Joe Flacco, his attitude, his body language has been very apparent, like on the sideline, like you mentioned when the camera pans over to him after a drive, he just looks dejected, like he's not really in the game, like he's not interested in what's going on. And
Yeah,
it's very strange. It's very strange behavior.
his body language
He
is
doesn't
that of
look
a
like he's
backup
having
quarterback.
fun. Right. He
Like,
has the backup quarterback language, and it's like, man, look, you were given the keys for the rest of the season, man. Show some fight, show some leadership, right? I haven't seen any clips of him looking like a leader or coaching guys up or anything. So it is kind of crazy. It's like guys are kind of going through the motions out there, and so maybe that's what Kenny Moore's talking about. Maybe it's not someone in specific. Maybe it's not like, hey, this guy is going through the motions. I think as a whole, just the vibe of the team, especially on offense, I think he's directing it at the offense. The vibe of the offense is very much like, hey, we're going to go through the motions because we know that we're not going anywhere this year. That's what it
yeah.
feels like to me. That's what it feels like as a whole, as an offense as a whole. They're going through the motions to me. And
And
so
who would
maybe
have
that's what
thought?
maybe that's what he means. I don't know.
Who would have thought like that's the problem? Like after last season, what Shane Steichen did with Gardner Minshew, like I was just like, this is gonna be so good. Like this offense is gonna be
Mm-hmm.
crazy with Anthony Richardson. Whoever's at the helm, like offense is never gonna be an issue. It is never gonna be a problem at all. And I don't know what it is. Like I don't know if it's play calling. I don't think it's play calling. People seem to still be open. Maybe it's the decision making at the quarterback position. Joe Flacco hasn't really been a good decision maker. 6
Sure.
turnovers in the
Yeah.
last 2 games and not hitting the easy routes. It seems like he feels like a rookie. Like it feels like he looks at Josh Downs, his first read, and he's like, I'm throwing it there. I don't care who the hell is there. Like I'm looking at you, JD, and I'm gonna throw it right at you every single time. Like I feel like it's like very rookie mistakes. He looks at one read and does whatever, like something that Anthony Richardson or Caleb Williams is doing or should be doing. Like they're rookies, and so that's kind of the
Yeah.
mind-boggling piece of it. To me is, what are you doing, Joe? Like what are you doing? We didn't bring you in like we brought you in to be a veteran presence initially. If AR goes down, we need you here. You're a guy that has this experience. But now I feel like it's like we got to babysit you because you don't even know what the hell you're doing. You look like a fucking retirement QB that we've had the carousel for the past X amount of years. So
And
brutal.
it's crazy because the narrative, right, around the NFL and other fans of other teams, like they see the Colts as this now. It's a laughing stock. Like people talk about how the Colts are a retirement home for quarterbacks, and that's exactly what we're going through again right now. Like it's
Yep.
almost comical.
Yep.
It's insane that the powers that be, the front office, whether it be Ballard, whether it be Ursay, whether it be some other guys that are in their ear, it's fascinating to me beyond all reason why they are not taking this seriously. It's
Yep.
crazy. I
Yep.
don't get it. As a fan, I don't have any answers. As someone who has literally dedicated so many years, so much of my time, so much of my money, so much of my just being to this team and wanting them to succeed, it is very frustrating. It's very frustrating to figure out what the hell is going on. And I think a lot of people feel like they're entitled to answers. and we're not getting any. There's
There's
no
really
answers that are coming right now.
there's no answers. There's no direction for this team. I feel like the Jets. I feel like the Browns. I feel like the Bears. I feel like we used to be once this well-respected organization with Peyton and with
Yeah.
Luck that we're going to win the division at least every other year. We're going to make the playoffs and make some noise. And now it's like, and I was always so excited. Like I never used to be humble about it. I always used to be cocky and be like, yeah, I'm a Colts fan. Like, this is awesome. Your team sucks. Like, our team is in this standard to this level. This is what we're viewed at. And now it's just come to a point where the coach that I believed in the most, Shane Steichen, and I still believe in him. And I really hope this is still not his decision. I really think he's just taking it up the chin. He's a puppet for either Chris Ballard or Jim Irsay, because the decision making to bench a young quarterback like AR and to start Joe Flacco, who has no future here post the next 8 games of this season, is just it hurts as a Colts fan. It really does, from where we used to be to where we are now. I literally feel like the Bears, the Browns, the Jets, the Titans, the shittiest of organizations out there.
And that's the thing, man, is like we've both talked about, I don't think there's anybody out there that necessarily wants Steichen fired. I know there's like some rumblings, but at the end of the day, it's like he really is making decisions right now that, if you look historically in the past at other coaches doing this, he's making decisions for himself that might end up in him getting fired. Crazy.
Yep.
Like, it's absolutely crazy. I've never seen such a quick fall from grace when it comes to a coach. I mean, we're talking about a guy who was a coach of the year candidate last year until
Top
the final
4.
game.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm like,
Now he's on the
what
firing list.
the hell happened? There has to be interference somewhere. It has to be Irsay. It has to be Ballard. Someone, as Jeff Saturday mentioned, someone has to be trying to save their job. And to me, there's no way, it doesn't make sense for it to be Steichen. He wasn't in a position to lose his job until these decisions started being made. He was fine. He wasn't on a hot seat or anything like that. But he's almost forcing his own firing by these decisions that he's making right now. I've never seen anything like it. It's crazy.
I think
so. I really hope we get answers soon, man. Like, I really do. I want to get answers.
I agree. And I think that's a good segue into what we're going to talk about next, is just, and I think we covered it a little bit last week with just kind of the coach speak and whatever. And it kind of felt like we got a little bit of that coach speak in the post-game presser yesterday. We got that coach speak today in their mid-afternoon before practice presser. And, as I'm sure Colts Nation, you've heard, Joe Flacco, according to Steichen, and per his quote, is going to be the starter for this Sunday against the Jets. Thank God they flexed that out of prime time. Otherwise, it's going to end up being a Colts Broncos situation all over again from 2 years ago. But I guess
40-year-old quarterbacks going head to head, baby.
2 Hall of Fame 40-year-old quarterbacks, both with losing teams, 4-6 versus 3-5. Here we are. How exciting! How exciting Sunday's 1 p.m. slate's going to be. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Logan, and what your thoughts were on some of the things that Steichen mentioned yesterday, some of the things that Steichen mentioned in his presser today. Yesterday he was just like, I'm sure Joe Flacco wants to have these last 2 games back. We can't have turnovers, X, Y, or Z. He was really getting pressed by James Boyd, Kevin, some of these really, really good reporters for the Colts. Even today, they were just like, why Joe Flacco? Because if you're talking about accountability and you bench, Anthony Richardson because of accountability, how are you going to sit here to your Colts Nation, to your Colts fans, and say, Joe gives us the best chance to win? Steichen mentioned Joe is a veteran. He's a veteran leader. And that's kind of what we talked about, 2 minutes ago. What leadership? He looks around like he has like dementia, like constantly on the sidelines. So, like, honestly, so, how can you, and to kind of preface or on top of everything, I kind of want to get your thoughts around, is there more to Anthony Richardson being benched than his play? Because that's really what it comes down to for me at the end of the day. That's what I believe at this point. Like, there's no way you can sit there and tell Colts fans, as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, and say, we benched him because of his play when Joe Flacco is playing the way he is, yet still name him the starter. So it's got to be some maturity thing, some outside thing, some preparation thing. So your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll start with that. 100% resounding yes. It is 100% something that is off the field. If it's on the field, that is quite literally an indefensible uh, decision by Steichen, because we've seen the on the field product that Joe Flacco has put out there the last 2 weeks, and it's been worse than anything Anthony Richardson has put together the entire year. So it's not by play. It has to be a maturity thing for sure. I thought that going back to hearing about the initial benching, I was like, "There's no way he's pulling the trigger on just by play alone. That's crazy."
Yeah.
And I'll put my hand up and I will say, I, like a lot of Colts fans, got tricked into thinking, I really did, because of those couple games that Flacco came in and played all right. I got tricked into thinking that he did give the Colts the best chance to win now. I really did. I thought that. I was like, hey, I know AR is the future, but I do think Joe Flacco could come in and win some games that AR wouldn't win. Now, I am 100% backtracking. And I am saying, because I can do something that Steichen is not willing to do, which is admit that I'm wrong. And I was 100% wrong. Joe Flacco does not give the Colts a better chance to win now. If anything, he's actually hurting the Colts even worse. I'm not saying that AR is going to come in and magically this Colts team is going to start racking up W's, right? There's a lot of issues there still. But
yeah,
it's not going to be worse than what Joe Flacco is doing right now. So 100%, I was definitely wrong on the whole win now thing from Flacco. And then going to your question about Steichen, this quote just baffles me. And again, I'm going to put it into context of, imagine someone saying this quote at their job. So they're not an NFL player, right? And they're not an NFL coach. They're saying this at their just regular job. This guy says about Joe Flacco, obviously, he's just a guy that's a veteran guy. Obviously, he's had 2 games that he'd like to have back, but we'll keep battling through it and see where it goes. So imagine you're sitting at work and your boss says, hey, man, this project that I needed, both times that I've given you this project, you've absolutely messed it up and ruined it. And it's costing us a lot of money and it's costing us a lot of time. And like, this is a really serious thing that I need you to take seriously. And you looking your boss back in the face and saying, yeah, I'll try to correct it and just kind of see where it goes next time. They're going to look at you and be like, no, I need your absolute, like, hey, this will not happen again. Like, I need a, this
100%.
will not happen again out of you. And he's just giving us well, we're going to throw him back out there and just see what happens. Like,
hey, he's our
veteran.
Kidding
me?
He's been here forever.
This isn't
been in the industry.
This isn't gambling, bro. Like, this is like yes, people gamble on the NFL, but like, you are the head coach of a football team. You can't gamble your team's future on, let's just see how it goes. Let's just throw them out there and just see how it goes. Come on now. Like, that to me was the most wild part of the quote that he said, honestly, from the presser. I was blown away. I was like, who talks like this? Nobody talks like this.
Yep. That is such a good point, and it's laughable. And I'm going to say this in the podcast. Clip it, post that everywhere, because I love what you just said there. That was amazing. I want to add something too. A couple of tweets that I saw around. I don't know if you know Nico Elite Takes. He's just an awesome guy, young sports contenter. Yeah, he's awesome. He tweeted this. It just doesn't make sense for him to be the one so strongly insisting about this in relation to benching Anthony Richardson, considering his entire history as a coach and philosophy. Guy whose entire rise as a coach was based on developing athletic young QBs and leaning into a balanced, methodical offensive attack, suddenly diverting to a hyper-aggressive passing attack and statue QB on the verge of retirement. And that is so true. What he put into words there is what Logan, you and I have been saying for the X amount of weeks, last couple of weeks. That is so true. Everything is completely changed. It just doesn't make sense that Steichen is taking the sword for it. He is taking the arrow right in his chest for either Ballard or for Steichen. And he's saying, whatever, we're going to completely divert from our plan. And that's why I don't believe it was him. And why, even if it was him, it's not because of play. It is something that's going on outside of the picture, whether it be a maturity issue for Anthony Richardson, whether it be a preparation issue for Anthony Richardson, which, by the way, both Steichen shot down in the last couple of pressers. One thing that I was thinking about, Logan, and let me know your thoughts on this.
What is it, Steichen?
And what is
like,
it?
Literally, what is it? Yeah.
You know how every time, like, sometimes family likes to get involved. Let's say you bench a player. Sometimes you'll have, like, Patrick Mahomes' dad tweeting about something, or Chris Olave's brother tweeted the other day, like, Derek Carr sucks. Like, he's throwing him hospital balls, which is why NOLA is not the place for him. I haven't heard anything from AR's family outside of AR's friend or something. He liked one of our TikTok posts, which is kind of cool, but he hasn't said anything, right? It's not like his mom came out and said this, or his brother came out and said this, or his best friend that he writes music with back from the GVO says this. We hear nothing from any of them. So my concern is maybe they're like, I really don't have anything to say because the coaches are right. He needs a little bit more time in the locker room. Maybe there's some maturity thing, but I always viewed him as like, this guy's a man of faith. I think you're married. You have a kid. You have a beautiful kid. Like, it's like, you're very mature, but then am I missing something? Like, I'm confused. Nothing coming out from his family.
We're definitely missing something. It's got to be confirmed 100%. We're all missing something because they're being very hush-hush about it. And I'll be honest, man, I don't like how little I'm hearing from Chris Ballard. With how bad this Colts team has been struggling, the fact that man is not on a mic and isn't answering questions and is just making Steichen fall on the sword for all this shit, it's pissing me off, man. And I really, really hope – I'll be honest, we've talked about it before, and I'll say it again. If anything good is to come from this situation, I do think it's Ballard getting fired.
Please.
If it's Steichen instead, I am appalled. I would be appalled if it was Steichen that gets fired and not Ballard. I think
be
Colts
pissed off,
Nation
man.
would have
I'd
a
be so
freaking
mad.
Riot, bro. A riot. Because I really strongly believe like the leash has been long enough. I'm sorry for Ballard. You cannot continue to make the same excuse that your franchise quarterback retired 2 weeks before the season, because look around the league. Look around the league at some of these other teams that have struggled with similar issues, right? Maybe not their starter, franchise quarterback retiring 2 weeks before the season, but look around the league at what some of these franchises are doing now with these young quarterbacks. You got the Texans. You got the Commanders.
Steelers. Even
right?
the Steelers with like veteran door of revolving quarterbacks still find a way to make it work. Still
find a way. There's so many franchises out there that have just shut the hell up and figured out a way and not complain. And it seems like every Colts fan, Ballard sympathizer, continues to make the same excuse over and over again. Oh, Andrew Luck. We get it, bro. That was a long freaking time ago now. We got to live right now. We got to live in the present and get this shit done. And guess what? Going to Joe Flacco, like you mentioned, does absolutely nothing. It does absolutely nothing, and it continues that you will continue to be in quarterback purgatory.
Yep. Period. Yep, and hopefully not head coach purgatory. And it's funny, Logan, you mentioned that because I was one of those guys that was just like, Ballard stan. Like, this guy develops really well. He's able to find the gems in the late rounds, whatever. But what I'm saying now, I'm tired of Chris Ballard. I think that should speak volumes because I literally, I'm just like, this guy's awesome. Grass isn't always greener. But I'm done, bro. Like, I'm so done with Chris Ballard. 0 divisional titles in 8 years. Just as you said, you cannot keep using Andrew Luck retiring for the past 7-8 years as an excuse anymore. Move on. You're right. See what every one of these young teams have been doing, how they've rebuilt. They've figured their shit out. The Detroit Lions figured their shit out. The Commanders figured it out in a year. The Houston Texans figured out to win the division in their first year with a new head coach and a new quarterback and a new play caller. And yet we are in a revolving door of veteran quarterbacks over and over and over again. And one thing you were mentioning about Chris Ballard, yes, he needs to come to the mic. And it's funny because a lot of GMs, they typically don't talk like mid-season or until the end of the season or the beginning of the season, whatnot. Chris Ballard always does a middle of the season presser. And I'm curious if he's man enough, if he has the balls to do it this year. I'm really curious to see if he does.
I want to see it. I'll be the first one signed up. Listen to that thing because I want to hear. I want to hear how he likes the guys that we have, and just continue to say that rhetoric again.
I want to
Sheesh.
hear about Joe Flacco. I just want to hear honest.
Yeah.
I'm tired of lies, dude. I'm tired of white lies. Like, just tell me the truth. What the hell is going on? The Colts fans, the season ticket holders like myself, deserve to know. They just
Agreed.
deserve to know. They really do.
Looks like we're coming up on some time. Any last things that you wanted to talk about, Flacco wise, or from the Buffalo game? And obviously, we'll get into the Jets matchup in our Thursday episode. So
Yeah, no. Last thing I'll say is, Colts fan till I die, man. Bleed blue till I die. But I'm tired. I'm tired of being viewed as the Browns, as the Bears. And now we have this crazy matchup against the Jets, which was once in prime time, and now it's a 1 p.m. slate, thank God. But, like, I'm tired, man. Like, give us answers as Colts fans. Give us something to feel excited for. Give us offense. Give us complimentary football. Give us a win. And give us, at the end of the day, give us answers because we deserve it. I'm sorry. Like, you tell us your fans are you're going to keep everything in-house. Do it during draft time. Right now, we deserve it. Ati deserves it. Pro fan Logan deserves it. Colts Nation deserves it.
you're damn right. I wish I could. I wish it was still called Twitter because I would just say retweet to what Adi just said because re-X doesn't have the same
No.
ring to it.
No,
so
it doesn't.
Retweet and appreciate you guys listening. We will see you guys on Thursday.
Much
Peace
love,
out.
Colts Nation.